that's all I could do. Making her way to the track, Lizzie would consider the situation rationally. Obviously, not the entire track team was guilty, and some of them might be suspicious, but wouldn't be able to touch John. The best way through this was via... Okay. After watching her long enough, Lizzie knew exactly who she needed to remove. There was an attractive blonde girl who stretched unnecessarily between runs to show off her assets. And her eyes wandered. Yes, it would be the best to start with her. It would have been immediately satisfying to isolate her and take care of her directly, ideally with an axe in hand, but that would be difficult to hide, and she needed to preserve their life together. For several days, Lizzie skipped some of her classes, watching the girl's schedule. She had a car she kept in the east parking lot and frequently drove out of town. She seemed she wasn't a particularly careful driver and didn't wear a seatbelt either, so it would be easy to set everything up. The only problem with cutting her brake line was that the girl would notice while backing out. That wouldn't do at all. While considering this problem, Lizzie acquired gloves, checking for cameras, and made other preparation. Lizzie, is everything okay? Lizzie abruptly realized that she had been scribbling her plans at home in front of him. John didn't look suspicious because he trusted her, but he knew something was wrong. She felt a surge of love that he knew her so well, but she realized that she had made a mistake letting him see. She needed to hide everything deep inside her, at least until she could remove the problem. Everything's fine, John. There have been some mean girls in class who have really upset me lately. I see. You can always talk to me, Lizzie. You know that, right? Of course. But she couldn't talk to him about this, not about that horrible girl. No, she needed to take care of this herself to protect them. Lizzie gave John her sweetest smile. She could be stronger than this, swallow the stress and show him only all the love she had to offer. Then he wouldn't be sad, and she could eliminate the problem, and they could have happy college days together. A week later, she had her opportunity. A sporting event filled with eastern parking lot, making her target park on a side street where she would be no need to brake. Lizzie hummed romantically to herself as she drained the brake fluid, disabled the emergency brake, and manipulated the pedal until it felt natural. Then she retreated to a safe distance and watched as everything went accordingly to plan. The crash was less dramatic than she expected, but it was enough. She was certain of it, even though she had to restrain herself from going to check, because that might have cast suspicion on her, and she couldn't let anything ruin their relationship. But things were better now. The terrible girl was gone, and John wouldn't notice anything, and she could love him forever. Now there was nothing left to do but to make college memories. Protecting him. Jeez. All the factor in her mind and gave the woman a flat smile. I'm going to go for a walk in the garden then. Don't get close to any of the workers. Ignoring her, Lizzie headed out. The grounds really were pleasant. She was glad they picked this location, but her purpose was not to go for a walk. Once she got out of eyesight, Lizzie circled back and made her way around the main building before they'd been split up. She obviously noted exactly where they'd taken John to wait. Comparing it to the map she looked up on the building, she could easily determine where his room met the outside wall. She didn't see anyone until she saw him, though, the window. John was alone, sitting in a room much like hers. Though he looked mostly calm, she could see the tensions in his tensions in his hands as he clasped them together. No doubt he was nervous about this too, and given her fears about this day, Lizzie had probably added to them, but she planned to reverse that trend very soon. My God, read. Just not quite yet. Instead, she stayed outside the window staring at him just like she used to. The next time she'd been staring at her husband, Lizzie was sure that her smile had become something that was not comforting to most, but it didn't matter. She knocked on the glass and John jumped a little. Rylan looked at her. But when he saw her, he immediately smiled. After checking the window a bit, he managed to open it. Everything okay, Lizzie? Everything's fine. There was just an awful woman saying boring things and I got tired of it. Before he could object, she pulled herself through the window. Normally it would have been effortless, but the dress made things a little more difficult. Fortunately, John offered her his hand and she was able to get in somewhat gracefully. They say it's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding. She walked past him and locked the door to the room. But I think that only applies to normal people. Brushing past him again, Lizzie lowered the blinds to cover the window completely and then turned to him with a smile. Would you like to see the bride? Really? Now? He glanced over his shoulder. Uh-oh. He glanced over his shoulder to the door as if she hadn't just locked it, but he was smiling. After a moment, he turned back to her. You're beautiful, Lizzie. If you stay here, I don't think I'll be able to help myself. She grabbed the front of his suit and pulled him to her. I don't want you to. Lizzie pressed herself against him, ignoring the clothes between them, feeling his body against hers. His hands automatically came to rest on her waist, keeping her there as they bent to kiss her. She eagerly kissed him back, first simple and romantically. Then, after a while, slipping her tongue into his mouth. One of John's hands slid down, cupping her ass, through the dress and pulling her harder against him. Needing more, Lizzie pushed against him until he had to take a step back, his back against the wall. That felt good, but she wanted John. Understanding, he spun her around that she was the one against the wall. Her veil flattered with the movement, covering her face, and for a moment she could only feel him there, pressing her against the wall, his knee sliding between her legs. Ah yes, like this. His hand slid down, brushing over the silk dress and caressing her thigh. She eagerly raised it against his side, her leg practically wrapped in her dress, and partly against the smooth material of his suit. John kissed her again, grinding his hips against hers a little harder. Lizzie moaned softly and pressed herself hard against him. Even as he kept caressing her thigh, though, her dress. You have a lot of dress. Lizzie laughed gleefully, and fortunately John just smiled to her too. Her dress didn't have to have too large of a train, but it still took a little careful work to hitch the front end of it up above her waist. John blinked when he saw she was wearing only a lingerie below. Oh. I didn't want to wait to get changed after the ceremony, but I couldn't even wait that long. Lizzie fumbled at his crotch, feeling the hardest there, and it was his turn to laugh. He didn't make her wait any longer, getting his out of the front of his pants. She couldn't see it due to her dress, so Lizzie just slid one of her legs against his hip and eagerly looked into his eyes as she pushed lingerie aside. He slid inside her easily, making Lizzie moan and away from the wall against him. The clothing they were wearing no longer seemed like the slightest obstacle. Now that the two of them were joined, John began to thrust gently inside. Oh my God, letting his weight fall against her and pin her to the wall. It felt glorious, but she wanted more. Lizzie slid her arms from his shoulder up to the back of his head, tangling in his hair. It had been combined in a style that looked good, but she still preferred his slightly docile look as they... in her hand slid through his hair and tousled it more than a little. She pulled him closer to kiss her again, and he did so, gently kissing her even as their hips thrust furiously against one another. John was about to become hers in yet another way, and she wanted nothing more, except at the moment she wanted to come. When John pulled back, Lizzie tilted her head upwards and let herself moan louder. Let someone try to interrupt. She didn't care. They'd been done before anyone could stop them. Blatantly, she realized that John might be more concerned, but she was glad to see that he was entirely focused on her. His eyes were filled with love and desire as they ran all over her, and he didn't stop moving. Her needy accepting his length gladly. Setting aside such concerns, Lizzie just leaned back and enjoyed the pleasure. She was moaning continually. Her chest rose and fell to escape her dress, but it didn't matter. All she wanted was more and hard. Just when she thought she couldn't take it any longer, John groaned and his hips shredded. His body grounded against hers fast and erectly as his lunge inside her. The feeling of his sent her over the edge, gripping him tightly. Oh, God. her body arched against the wall so powerfully that he almost pushed him back, but he stayed seated inside. Oh. For a moment, her head was as white as the dress she wore. Then Lizzie came back down, though gasping for breath. She saw that John was breathing heavily too, his arms against the wall now, practically to support himself. She didn't mind feeling his body pressing against hers, and his as they both recovered. When he pulled back, Lizzie quickly shifted her injury to try and keep John raised his eyebrows. Really? It's easier that way. Think about it during the ceremony if you want. She winked at him, but it felt a little too silly, and she ended up kissing him again. Lizzie returned her leg to the ground and just enjoyed kissing him for a while as he held her there in her wedding dress. As glorious as it felt, it was so uncomfortable to read. It looked awkward, even though I didn't even read it properly. I was just going, every time it was something crude. Immediately afterwards, as they struggled to right their clothes and remove any signs of what happened, had happened, they both helped the other adjust, then smiled again. That was a lot better than just waiting, wasn't it? Then I'll see you soon, won't I? Look surprised. Lizzie climbed back out the window, made sure her dress was still in decent shape, then headed back to her room. The assistant grumbled when she saw a few things. Ask you. Okay, but Lizzie just smiled at her demurely as said that she had a nice walk. In a few minutes, everything was fixed and the preparations were finally done. The wedding was so soon, yet Lizzie wasn't nervous anymore. It was finally time. Lizzie stepped from the... All this had been read before. She had seen him wearing a suit not long before. It was completely different to see him standing there, waiting to marry her. He looked amazing. Hey, I saw it skip something. You got no other choice. Forever. True ending again. Thank you. Being your main man now in paradise. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment and share all that fancy stuff. And yeah, this has been Crimson Grey, Dusk and Dawn, and it's finally over. It took me some time, I don't know why. Just because I'm lazy at reading. Thank you and bye. Jesus, that